Coming in at number 5, the Undead Witch. Generally speaking, you should avoid undead witches. The living ones can be reasoned with and are often quite pleasant to converse with, even if you yourself are not a follower of Wicca. The ones who perished and through some dark magic managed to make it back to the realm of the living, those are the ones you gotta watch out for. Nobody wants to be at the receiving end of a hex or spell cast by a practitioner of magic who has returned from the grave. No thank you. An unfortunate cohort of Ouija-using pals accidentally summoned one though, and the results were less than pretty. After procuring a Ouija board through some pretty standard methods, a guy named Justin and his pals decided to have a little seance, all in good fun of course. Fun is just how those things start though, and it quickly took a turn for the worse. The friends open up the session and begin to ask questions of the presence they had summoned. At first there was no response, but the intrepid paranormal enthusiasts pressed on dauntless, looking for some sort of message from the other side. Then the planchette started moving. Slowly at first, it swayed back and forth between the four corners of the board, picking up speed as it went. Soon it was just doing quick laps around the board. The circle shifted and undulated as the planchette began drawing out new shapes on the surface, freaking everyone out. They called it off, closed the circle, and decided to do something else. However, when Justin tried the board again, this time with a different friend, the results were the same, a slowly shifting planchette eventually reaching a fever pitch. After that second experience, he started to notice strange things happening. He would wake up in the middle of the night with the sensation of someone grabbing his arm. His pals that participated in the paranormal practice reported similar events. Looking into it, they discovered that this experience could have endowed them with a hex. From beyond the grave, this witch decided to weave some spells and made some mischief. Hopefully the folks on the receiving end are okay now. Coming in at number 4, close the circle. Now, this is just good advice for anyone interested in Ouija. Make sure that you fully understand the ritual before going in and performing it. Walking in half prepared will always end in disaster, so do not wing it. Read up on the process, ensure you understand what must be done, and for goodness sakes, make sure to close the ritual at the end. You can do everything else right, from starting with a good mindset, to being polite and patient with your summoned spirit, to refraining from asking for physical signs that they are present. But if you don't move the planchette to goodbye at the end of the session, whatever presence you've brought into your home is liable to stick around. An experience most foul. Some will be friendly, amicable spirits from the great beyond, willing to interact and leave without any trouble. But you can't believe everything a spirit tells you on a Ouija board, and many times demons will appear under the guise of a good-natured individual. This is where things can get dangerous. Take poor Vince, who once used a Ouija board as a child. He and his brothers managed to summon a Russian spirit who claimed to have been murdered in cold blood. A classic origin story for sure. But after they stopped communicating, the brothers decided to go get some food, without closing the circle. When they returned to the basement, the energy had noticeably shifted. A dark, heavy presence was here, and things were not as they were. Books and toys had been flung around the room in a whirlwind, but the Ouija board still sat in the middle, undisturbed. Apparently, when Vince looked into the mirror in the basement, he noticed that the eye on the Ouija board was looking around the room, as if searching for something. The brothers moved the planchette to goodbye and resolved never to do that again. Coming in at number 3, we've got a scorched corpse. Could be Freddy Krueger, could be someone else. I'd rather not take that risk though. It seems that whenever kids spend the night somewhere unfamiliar, they witness unexplainable phenomena. The result of overactive imaginations perhaps? Or is there something to these visions of the paranormal? Well, you could ask those who decided that a sleepover in an old school gym was a good idea what they saw. Christy and her soccer team had set up for an overnight stay at the school gym. Sleeping bags, snacks, scary stories, you name it. But someone brought a Ouija board, and that could not be resisted. The teammates gathered together and started the ritual, seeing if anyone from the school's history would show up. When they finally made contact with somebody, it spelled out words like thirst, and fire, and help. Then the spirit moved the planchette to goodbye, and that was that. They asked around the next day and discovered something disturbing. Apparently there had been a fire at this very location a long time ago, burning the building to the ground. Could it be that a poor, unfortunate soul was trapped in this inferno and now haunts the rebuilt gym? Coming in at number 2, we've got some solo advice. I'll do one more advice column contribution to this Ouija video just to make sure any curious individuals go in knowing as much as they possibly can. Never use a board on your lonesome. Not only is that a goofy, dorky thing to do, it can also be very dangerous. It takes 2 to tango, and it also takes a duo to draw upon the spirit world. Don't underestimate the power of the paranormal. In many dramatic interpretations of Ouija use, folks who go about it alone end up way worse for wear. Often they'll end up summoning something that will attempt to possess them, emboldened because they're alone. or sometimes they'll simply be unable to control any aspect of the ritual and see some things that are quite upsetting. One story comes from an individual named Sarah who decided she wanted to contact some spirits in her free time. Unable, or maybe unwilling, to gather some friends in time, she sat down with the board and planchette all alone. This proved to be a very bad call almost immediately as the planchette shot out of her hands and across the room. Needless to say, she did not attempt this again. Another tale comes from Oceana, who similarly wanted to see what spirits were around but refused to gather a group. When she started the ritual, nothing seemed to happen. A little perplexed, she began to clean up, but as she was moving candles, she noticed something quite spooky indeed. The planchette was moving totally on its own with Oceana nowhere near the board. She rushed over and moved it to goodbye and hasn't attempted a seance since. And finally at number 1, we've got summoning sleep paralysis. Most folks looking to dabble in Ouija will find a board and use it somewhere they feel safe, at home or maybe a friend's place. But if you're serious about finding some paranormal activity, notably haunted areas are the place to be. In visiting these locations, you're essentially accepting responsibility for whatever spirits or demons you encounter though. Take Aaron and Arjun, two friends who found a Ouija board and decided to take it to a graveyard. Definitely a place known for harboring spirits and the like. At the graveyard, the duo attempted to summon something and failed, or so they thought. After their uneventful seance, they returned home and went to bed. Late that night, Aaron experienced sleep paralysis for the very first time. Unable to move, he saw a ghostly woman with long black hair slowly floating towards him. Some might chalk that up to a coincidence, or maybe the fact that Aaron was a little spooked from his late night excursion. However, Arjun called up Aaron the next day and told him about an identical experience. The two friends had somehow summoned a spirit that followed them both home and began invading their sleep. Goodness gracious. Coming in at number 5, we've got Giuseppe Tartini. In the first episode, we discussed another virtuoso musician who is rumored to have made a deal with the devil to become incredibly talented. The speculation was just that, all rumors. But in the case of composer, violinist, and music theorist Giuseppe Tartini, his dealings with demons seem to be a little more explicit. Tartini was well renowned at his time and proved to be quite influential in how he composed and played his music. But of his hundreds of musical pieces, one stands out above the rest. Sonata in G minor, Trio de Diavolo, the Devil's Trill. Devilry and demonic imagery were not as commonplace or as well received back then. Folks could get into trouble if they weren't careful with their artistic mores. However, as Tartini was a popular performer and composer, he seemed to get away with it. Apparently, the inspiration for this piece came from a vivid dream. During this outrageous nightmare, the devil appeared and played the violin with incredible ferocity and speed. This was way back before the devil went down to Georgia, too. Maybe he's just a big fan of stringed instruments. Tartini woke up and immediately tried to replicate what he heard in his dream, but was unable to capture the full effect of the song. Kinda like a tribute to the greatest song in the world, alright? Even though Tartini couldn't replicate the exact song from his dream, the Devil's Trill became his most legendary tune. The story behind it, coupled with its name and complexity, made people believe that he either had made a deal with the devil or had been possessed by a demon to create such music. Some even believed that he grew an extra finger on his left hand that made the difficult trills throughout the piece a little more easy for him to play. Trills, double stops, high-speed runs, and a plethora of mood and tempo changes make this song extremely challenging, even for modern violinists. Even so, Tartini wasn't fully satisfied with the piece. It's said that he was so frustrated by his inability to bring his dream to life that he would have broken his instrument and quit altogether if it wasn't his primary way of making money. Or maybe, and this is just speculation on my end, he made a deal with the devil in which he forfeited his soul for an incredible piece of music, yet was unable to reach the heights he dreamed of. That's a heavy price for a result you'd hoped would have been better. Coming in at number 4, we've got Jason Ethier. Yeah, we're gonna talk about this one. It's been a little while since YouTuber JStation had his channels taken down, and with them all sorts of videos involving demonic possession and connections to the afterlife. It's a little insane when you look at all the different videos he's put out there and all of the exaggerated claims he made about his experiences. However, he still managed to bring in millions of views and convince his audience that a whole lot of what was going on was real. From reaching out to dead celebrities with a Ouija board in an act of shockingly poor taste, to participating in 3 a.m. challenges where he calls fictional characters and demons in the wee hours of the morning, he's faced plenty of criticism for his bombastic and ridiculous style of making videos. But here's the thing, he still made plenty of money doing these things. So here's my not so serious analysis of his YouTube career. JStation made some sort of Faustian deal for his success. Why else would he make so many demon-themed videos? Why would he lie to people and put out patently ridiculous content? Why would he pretend that his girlfriend died, then rent a church, buy a coffin, and then plan on doing a resurrection video? Boom. A demon granted him the ability to rake in views and sell merch in exchange for his soul, and probably his integrity. Now, you can look to any of his videos where he claims a demon is present and see that they're pretty goofy. A lot of yelling and running around in darkness while speaking directly to camera. Most folks with a history of debunking paranormal activity wouldn't take them very seriously, and any claims of real demons in those videos are easily disregarded. But even so, the clickbaity nature of the videos worked phenomenally well and launched JStation and those he worked with to celebrity status. Maybe more infamy than fame, but still. In the end, he probably didn't really summon a demon to trade his soul for YouTube success, but he did, in my opinion, trade his rectitude. Coming in at number 3, we've got Grant Morrison. Now here we are with another artist supposedly summoning demons. We've talked about musicians and even ended up discussing an author last time. Now there's a playwright and comics artist on the list. Grant Morrison is well known for their experimental, non-linear, and countercultural approach to comics, and has helmed all sorts of DC publications over the years. They've also famously dabbled in different types of magic, sometimes getting close to the demonic side. In an interview with Sci-Fi, Morrison had this to say about demons. "It's a bit of both. Demons definitely exist if you consider demons, as I do, to be personifications of negative feelings and states that are familiar to all of us. Fear is a demon. Hate is a demon. Addiction is a demon, as is self-loathing, or guilt, or hopelessness. Everyone's felt the fangs of these beasts in one form or another. Basically, a demon is a human-hating, self-destructive state of mind given form or voice." Medieval grimoires portrayed these disordered, diseased, or chaotic states of mind as a jumble of cladogrammatic chaos. Flies with crowns, angel-winged toads, and wolf-headed eagles with swords. These demons have been with us since humankind became self-aware, which is what gives them their supernatural, i.e. eternal quality. Hate has been around forever. As individual human beings, we can all become possessed by hate. Someone, somewhere, right now hates someone or something. Therefore, hate never dies. Hate exercises an undying power over human affairs. Therefore, hate is a god, as love is a goddess. When the individual hate you briefly feel connects with the hate that never dies, you are in touch with bleak divinity. A magical ritual designed to summon hate into your heart would align your personal transient experience of hate with undying cosmic hate, until nothing remained in your heart and soul but hate. That's what it means to summon a demon. So, while their experience with demons might not be what most folks expect, there's a lot of interesting information to consider. Coming in at number 2, we've got Edward Centeno. For a quick moment, we're going to return to the 3 a.m. YouTuber state of mind. Edward Centeno, along with his constant companion Nikki, run a channel called Arcade Craniacs, and most viewers have a tough time figuring out whether it's parody or not. All of the hallmarks of these so-called demonic YouTube videos are there, from FaceTiming fictional characters to running around in the dark after witnessing something creepy. To date, Centeno has supposedly summoned Sonic.exe, the imposter from Among Us, Chuck E. Cheese, Freddy Fazbear, Elmo, SpongeBob, and more. Now, most of these demonic apparitions are just people in suits, or so it seems, but the commitment to the gag, the over-the-top reactions to everything happening, the weird references to other YouTube drama going on woven in, and all of the incredible performances from all involved make these demonic summonings more entertaining than most. I think they're just having fun with it and poking fun at other YouTubers. Probably. And coming in at number 1, we've got Emperor Justinian. Now, this might shock you, but stick with me. A lot of people believe that politicians and other public figures are demons in human form. I know, controversial. But there are few examples as well researched and documented as the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian. Procopius of Sejarah penned a tome called The Secret History that included plenty of scathing remarks concerning this emperor. The author truly believed that Justinian was a demon pretending to be a human. His wife, too. Of the many claims Procopius makes, there are a few that stick out. Apparently, Justinian's mother claimed that he was a demon too. Folks would often see his head disappear from his shoulders as he exited rooms, only to be right back in place when he was next seen. According to some, his face would melt into featureless flesh and he'd become unrecognizable. Now that doesn't really seem like stuff a normal emperor would be accused of, right? Could it be that Justinian was a demon? Or maybe he summoned one for a chance at power and gave up his form to the entity in question? Coming in at number 5, we've got Leighton. Authors tend to be a reclusive sort. So many tales exist detailing a storyteller's retreat to the wilderness to find peace so that they can pen their next great work. Someday, that'll be me and you'll never hear from me again. But until then, I'll just look at others and their foolhardy demon dealings. See, being alone in the woods tends to also inspire people to look deep within and find out what they truly desire. Without the distractions of modern life, other people, and a strong Wi-Fi connection, folks have to face down plenty of hard truths. If these truths are difficult enough, or if their dreams are big enough, they might be tempted to strike up a deal with the demon. I'm not sure if Leighton had actually done this or not, but his children's book seems to imply that he's an expert in this field. He wrote a book called A Children's Book of Demons, and inside are a bunch of fun and funky illustrations detailing demons the world over. Accompanying these illustrations is plenty of prose, encouraging children to be creative while dealing with their problems. It's kind of an edgy concept for a kid's book, but nothing too insane. However, it got lots of attention upon being published, drawing the ire of exorcists, religious leaders, and uptight parents everywhere. The book encourages readers to imagine demons, draw sigils, and attempt to use these strategies to assist them in their daily life, like a kid's Bible storybook, but more in line with Satanism. Most would look on and get a good chuckle out of this, but the previously mentioned folks condemned the tome, claiming that it would imbue the children with evil energies and ruin their lives. This leads me to assume two things. 1. Leighton knows enough about demons and Satanism to write a book that will offend people, and in his studies might have summoned one or two. Maybe they helped him write it. And 2, some of the parents who ended up buying this book for their kids actually witnessed some demonic activity. Nobody would be getting so up in arms about something totally harmless, so there must be at least a little bit of power here. I wonder what the kids use their demons for. Maybe acing a spelling bee or getting extra helpings for dessert. Number 4, Charlie. Staying on the topic of children summoning demons for a moment, let's discuss this viral smash hit of a demon summoning trend. Remember when this was all anyone was talking about? Oh boy. Part Bloody Mary, part Ouija, and part internet challenge, Charlie took the Western world by storm. It kind of inspired its own miniature satanic panic as concerned parents and news organizations rushed to understand the appeal of the game. In fact, I bet it would have all blown over much more quickly if folks just calmed down a little. But kids and teens across the nation were playing this game and supposedly successfully summoning a demon. Charlie, if you couldn't tell. The game works like this. Set up a little 2x2 grid and a piece of paper, writing yes and no in each of the squares. Once this is ready, balance 2 pencils perpendicularly atop each other so that one can sort of spin freely. Now you're ready to play. Chant Charlie and ask some questions. Apparently if the top pencil moves, that means Charlie is present. Is he good? Is he bad? Who knows? But a lot of folks took advantage of this interesting stationary-based phenomenon and claimed that they had managed to summon real demons. After asking some particularly salacious questions, they got answers they didn't like and began freaking out. Did this really hurt anyone? It's questionable, but like I said before, it inspired a whole lot of new coverage and panic amongst the morally upright who believed that the kid would encourage their kids to take their paranormal investigations a step further. It's been a while since someone went viral for playing Charlie, and I can't say that I've seen any major new updates concerning folks who supposedly summon demons. So maybe it was a temporary visit, one without lasting effects, but who knows? Somebody test it out for me, alright? Let me know if Charlie's still kicking and what he offers in exchange for a soul. Coming in at number 3, we've got Robert Johnson. A classic tale is that of the Faustian deal. Somebody wants something so bad that they're willing to give up their soul for it. Success in life, and then an eternity of servitude to a dark force in the afterlife. Worth it. Robert Johnson decided he wanted to be the ultimate blues guitarist and would give anything to make that happen. Some say that he sold his soul to the devil for the skills required. When he played, his talent was so impressive that much of his audience had no choice but to believe it was acquired through paranormal means. I'm sure that did a lot for his ego. Looking into this story, it's said that he met a devil at a crossroads and Satan tuned his guitar for him. Tenacious D who. The devil went on to teach Johnson how to master the blues, which was the prevalent guitar genre at the time, and from then on he was a genius on the fretboard. No one could keep up with him, and he impressed countless listeners.
However, he was met with an unfortunate fate, which only served to intensify the rumors about his skill. At the young age of 27, he passed away with foul play suspected. By that time, though, he had produced 6 studio records and thrilled folks across America. If your legacy lives on for ages like his, is that a fair trade-off for an early death? We can't ask Johnson himself, but I'm sure he'd have a strong opinion on that one. Coming in at number 2, we've got Sid White. Originally interested in witchcraft, Sid gradually became aware of and enamored with demons. Believing that a demon is an entity that has wandered our earth for ages, possibly even for eternity, he has supposedly summoned demons on multiple occasions. The rituals remain largely the same across the board, but small changes can affect what demon you'll summon. Write this down. You'll need a dark room, candles, herbs, a Ouija board, and blood. All pretty easily attainable, don't you think? Especially that blood bit. You're full of it. From there, you need to know a specific spell or chant, especially if you're looking for a specific demon. Knowing what you're getting into is pretty important too, because if you're summoning demons willy-nilly, you're gonna have a bad time. A lot of people choose to summon demons to strengthen their connection with another world. This allows those who do so to draw increased strength and insight and hopefully improve their life some. However, Sid refuses to talk about what happens once he summons a demon. That's his private time, apparently. I mean, there are a lot of things people do behind closed doors that they probably don't want to discuss with the world at large. I pulled a lot of this info from an interesting article on Vice, and I'm sure Sid didn't want all the Vice readers to know his secrets. Check out the article if you want some more insight though. It'll be in the description. Coming in at number 1, we've got Niccolo Paganini, another masterful musician making morbid arrangements under cover of dark. Paganini was well known for being able to do things no other musicians could even dream of. As a child, he was a wunderkind, quickly picking up and becoming proficient in all sorts of different musical instruments. Being a child prodigy comes with a lot of pressure though, I'm sure. By the time he was a teenager, he was an alcoholic. However, he managed to overcome this, and in his early 20s, he became a well-regarded star, composing complicated and popular pieces of music and performing all over Europe. Some of the stuff he composed, nobody else could even attempt to play for years. He could play 3 octaves across 4 strings in one hand on the violin, and won a Stradivarius for sight reading a supposedly impossible piece. One of his most famous compositions was called Witch's Dance, which raised even more eyebrows. So maybe in his darkest hours of alcoholism, he reached out to a higher or lower power and asked for power beyond his wildest dreams. Either that, or he decided to get it together. He supposedly had really long fingers too, which may have helped with his incredible musicality. Striking up deals, looking for power, and wondering what might be on the other side.
Coming in at 5, the Smurl's family. The Smurl haunting took place between the years of 1974 and 1989, and referred to claims made by Jack and Janet Smurl of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, who alleged that a demon was tormenting their home. Their first claims arrived in 74 when they alleged that their double-block home was disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors, threw their dog into a wall, shook their mattress, and pushed their children down some stairs. And on top of that, even physically and sexually assaulted Jack on multiple occasions. In 86, the family brought in our favorite demon fighting duo, Ed and Lorraine Warren. According to Ed, the demon that inhabited the Smurl's home was incredibly powerful and shook mirrors and furniture after they tried to persuade it to leave by playing religious music and praying. Temperatures would drop, and the Warrens even claimed to have seen a dark mass form in the home, with the demon once even leaving a message on a mirror telling them to get out. The home was blessed by several priests, with one unidentified priest performing 3 unsuccessful exorcisms. Janet Smurl claimed the demon avoided the rite during the exorcism by moving between the double-block home and following the family to other locations. Now, the source of the family's possession was never discovered, with many media outlets claiming they were frauds, simply looking for 15 minutes of fame, whereas others believe the family invited the demon in on their own accord. What do you guys think though? Coming in at 4, Julia. Back in 2008, a case was documented by Dr. Richard E. Gallagher, a psychiatrist in New York who describes one particular patient that we will refer to as Julia, who he deemed to be possessed by a demon. She was a middle-aged woman who wore flowing dark clothes and was incredibly charming. However, she was also part of a satanic cult. The woman referred to herself as the queen of the cult, but as I stated before, Gallagher simply referred to her as Julia, a pseudonym he gave her. Julia had approached her local priest, convinced she was being tormented by a demon, and in turn was referred to an exorcist who reached out to Gallagher for a mental health evaluation. The question here though, and the question Gallagher wanted answering, was why a devil worshipper would want to be free of the devil. right? Gallagher helped assemble an exorcism team and the group gathered in the chapel of the home. Reports state that the objects would fly off shelves around her. She even knew personal details about Gallagher's life, how his mother died and how many pets he had. Spookier still, even when Julia wasn't with Gallagher, she still found a way to reach out to him. On one particular occasion, Gallagher was talking on the phone with Julia's priest, when both men heard one of the demonic voices that came from Julia during her trance, even though she was nowhere near a phone and miles away. Gallagher went on to state that he had never been more afraid in his entire life. Coming in at number 3, Cheyenne Johnson. Arne Johnson is marked in history for being the very first person to plead innocent on account of demonic possession during a case that is infamously known as the Demon Murder Trial. On November 24, 1981 in Brookfield, Connecticut, Arne Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter for killing his landlord Alan Bono. Now this is where things get odd. According to the testimony by the Glatzel family, 11-year-old David Glatzel had allegedly played host to the demon that forced Johnson to kill Bono. And after a number of tragic and terrifying events, the family enlisted our pals Ed and Lorraine Warren in a last-ditch effort to cure David of his demonic possession. The family, along with the Warrens, proceeded to have David exorcised by a number of different priests. It lasted several days, and according to eyewitnesses, the demon left the child's body and took up residence in Arne Johnson's instead. Now, of course, a claim like this would never hold up in court, with the judge ruling that such a defense could never be proven, and was therefore infeasible in a court of law. Johnson was therefore convicted, though he only served 5 years of a 10 to 20 year sentence. Coming in at number 2, Michael Taylor. Michael Taylor is a man who became notable in England in 1974 for alleging that he was possessed by a demon. Taylor lived in West Yorkshire as a butcher, and with his wife belonged to a Christian fellowship group. However, Michael wasn't all good, with him often admitting that he felt evil within him, resulting in him attacking the leader of the fellowship, Marie Robinson, verbally. Taylor's behaviour increasingly became more erratic, and as a result, the local vicar called in other ministers experienced in deliverance in order to cast out the demons residing within the man. I mean, a little hasty. A lot of people have a temper, doesn't mean they're possessed. Anyway, the exorcism occurred on the 5th and 6th of October in 1974 at St. Thomas's Church in Gorba, and was headed by Father Peter Vincent. According to Bill Ellis, an authority in folklore and the occult, the exorcists believed that they had, I quote, in an all-night ceremony, invoked and cast out at least 40 demons, including those of incest, bestiality, blasphemy, and lewdness. At the end, exhausted, they allowed Taylor to go home, although they felt that at least 3 demons, insanity, murder and violence, were still left in him. And they were right, because while at home Michael Taylor murdered his wife Christine, attacking her with his bare hands before also attacking their dog. He was later found by police naked in the street, covered in blood. At his trial, Taylor was acquitted on the grounds of insanity and was sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 2 years. And finally, coming in at number 1, Gottliebin Dittus. This scary demonic case takes us all the way back to the 1800s. Gottliebin Dittus was a 28-year-old resident of the rural German village of Mottlingen, located within the Black Forest. She was raised with Lutheran parents and had somewhat of an oppressively religious, highly superstitious upbringing. However, when her parents died, Dittus lived with her siblings and continued to attend service. But it was the people living nearby the Dittus home that began to notice strange noises emanating from the home during the dark hours of the night. Noises which sounded violent in nature. Of course, many people suspected abuse was going on inside the house, so people decided to investigate. According to reports, they saw things that they couldn't explain. Furniture moving on its own accord, strange thuds, scrapes, and bangs that seemed to be coming from inside the walls, leading them to believe that something paranormal was occurring within the home. Dittus began to claim that at night she was being visited by the apparition of a woman holding a baby in her arms, and she was prone to having sudden blackouts, on one occasion going into an unresponsive trance-like state for an entire day, before snapping out of it with no memory of what happened. Gottliebin was ultimately sent away to live with her cousin, and of course the hauntings followed her to the new home, leaving the other siblings in peace. A reverend was called in, who determined that she was in fact possessed by a demon, after witnessing evidence such as fits, speaking in tongues, and intense bouts of cursing and profanity. Gottliebin even claimed that when she was younger, evil spirits had tried to kidnap her, but were driven away by the power of her mother's protective prayers. The Reverend began the ritual of exorcism, which caused an escalation in the strange phenomena surrounding the girl. She became more violent, needing to be restrained at all times. She even exhibited horrifying vomiting, which included glass nails and blood. The exhausting exorcism dragged on for 2 years, with the Reverend ultimately coming out on top, and with Gottliebin supposedly stating, "Jesus is victor."
Starting off at number 5, parents. Look, let's just get this one right out of the way now, okay? Parents, y'all can be the worst sometimes. The whole myth of the boogeyman came about as a way for parents to scare their kids into acting right. Like the whole, you better behave or the boogeyman will get you thing. Absolutely the worst. Now, whenever your kid is going to sleep at night in their dark room, the house will do what houses do and settle. Or something might fall, or the wind will blow outside just a little harder than usual, and now that kid is laying in bed terrified, thinking that something is coming out of its closet or under its bed, despite that kid's best efforts to be the best behaved kid you've ever met. Congratulations, you terrified your kid. But on the other hand, nightlight sales have probably been given a bit of a boost, so hey, you scared your kid and contributed to capitalism. Round of applause for you. Number 4, Crybaby Bridge. Down in Georgia, where all kinds of creepypastas and urban legends are running amok, there's one bridge famous for its boogeyman, Crybaby Bridge. Now, there are many bridges that have picked up this name in the US, but this one stands apart. What is an unassuming rickety wooden bridge with no safety rails during the daytime is the most haunted bridge in Georgia by night. The legends say that a single mother, crying and hoping for the end, was driving one rainy night with a small passenger in the back seat. Blinded by the rain and her own distraught tears, she drove off the rickety bridge that would later become Crybaby Bridge. The water below was not horribly deep, but for a woman who didn't care for her life and the helpless one in the back, the water brought the end. Since that day, a legend arose warning against anyone who dare stop on the bridge and turn off their headlights. Who better to test out urban legends than a group of 6 bored teenagers who had read the urban legend and decided to investigate. They piled into a car and drove out to Crybaby Bridge on a dark, unlit road surrounded by dense thickets of trees and brush. The teenagers drove out onto the 30-foot bridge as it creaked and crackled under the weight of their car. All at once, they agreed to get out of the car, but as they did, something below used their movement as cover for its own. The group grew quiet, trying to bring on whatever was supposed to happen, but as they grew quiet, so did the nightlife around. No crickets, no birds, no frogs. After a moment of silence, the faint sound of a crying baby slowly began to echo from downstream. Below the bridge, something was moving, trying to slip through the water without making too much sound. Then, a figure, man-like but all out of whack, appeared at the end of the bridge. It had a huge face with little beady black eyes, a huge nose but flattened. The face was covered in thick, reddish hair, and from its mouth were the sounds of a crying baby. But as the teens shone their light on this creature, the crying stopped. Now, the 9-foot tall creature stepped forward, a huge, muscular creature with elongated arms. As the teens recoiled in horror, another similar creature began reaching up from under the bridge, trying to get a hold on an ankle. This was a trap. What happens next? Well, you have to read the rest for yourself, sorry. Number 3, the Bye-Bye Man. Eli was a graduate student living in the town of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin in the fall of 1990 with his girlfriend Catherine and a friend named Jonathan. Someone had found an old Ouija board in an attic and for fun gave it to the 3 friends who had been living together. Just like any group of friends would, the 3 began conducting experiments with the board, seeing if this whole superstition thing was real. Turns out they had a pretty wild ride. After they believed they had communicated with a number of spirits, they decided to make an effort to contact a spirit that had actually been a living human. The board eventually transmitted the story of the Bye-Bye Man, a blind albino man born in Louisiana sometime in the 1920s. According to the story, his parents put him in an orphanage in Algiers, New Orleans, where he was shunned. The boy eventually escaped the orphanage and turned to the life of a killer. Jumping on trains and traveling around wherever he wanted, he was accompanied by his companion called Gloomsinger, which was a dog-like creature sewn together from the tongues and the eyes of his victims. Well, unfortunately, the 3 friends, Eli, Catherine, and Jonathan, were told via the Ouija board that the spirit of the Bye-Bye Man had lashed onto them and that he was coming for them. Apparently, anyone who thought of or said the Bye-Bye Man's name became his next target. He then began riding the rails in their direction, sending out Gloomsinger to locate the person. Once they were found, Gloomsinger would let out a shrill whistle to call to the Bye-Bye Man. The history of the Bye-Bye Man is traced back to a teenager who told a reporter that he took his family's lives because the Bye-Bye Man made him do it. Luckily for Eli, Catherine, and Jonathan, they were not driven to hurt anyone, but they were definitely scared out of their skin. There is a movie based on this story, but in that one, things don't end so nicely. Number 2, Terry Sherman. The great thing about the boogeyman is that it has no one form. It's just the manifestation of whatever people fear. For the Native American Navajo people, this would be the skinwalker. Now before I get into this, everything I tell you is coming from the brief amounts of research I did when making this video, so if I get something wrong or mispronounce certain things, feel free to politely correct me in the comments below. Similar but not the same to the Russian Baba Yaga, the skinwalker is a kind of wicked sorcerer who can transform into, occupy, or disguise themselves as an animal. It has deep roots in Aboriginal American folklore. Other tribes throughout the region also have their own versions of the skinwalker. The Pueblo people, Apache, and Hopi people each have their own unique interpretation of what a skinwalker might be. Some believe that skinwalkers are produced when a medicine man abuses magic for evil, corrupting the natural order of things, turning them into an evil entity capable of controlling and turning into animals, or even possessing others. There's also another version that says that one becomes a skinwalker by performing some kind of taboo act, similar to the tale of the Wendigo. In Navajo stories, the Nagloshi were agents for the holy people when they were first training humans in the blessing way. Nagloshi were supposed to abandon the mortal world with the holy people, but a few decided to stay behind. Their greed and desire to stay in the mortal plane corrupted the power the holy people gave them and transformed them into malicious, semi-divine beings. Now, I'm actually putting myself in quite a bit of danger here even talking about this, as these beings are not something you are supposed to talk about. Even the people who named this being aren't willing to talk about it, especially not with outsiders, so be courteous and don't go asking about it. Most of you have likely heard of Sherman Ranch, also known as Skinwalker Ranch. This ranch near Ballard, Utah is apparently a cursed lot of land that has had many different kinds of encounters. One is of interest to us right now. Terry Sherman, the owner of the property way back in 1996, was walking his dogs around the farm late at night when he came upon a wolf. A wolf 3 times the size of a regular one with glowing red eyes and an incredibly mean look. Terry claims to have attacked the beast, but no evidence is actually available. Was this the Navajo's boogeyman? Who knows? Number 1, Cropsey. Okay, this one is going to get a bit more real. In Staten Island, USA, a tale of a boogeyman-like creature named Cropsey was famous among many kids who lived in the area. Cropsey was said to be an axe-wielding man who escaped from a mental institution and would lurk around in the dark tunnels below the old abandoned Willowbrook State School, a facility for children with intellectual disabilities that was shuttered after allegations of horrific mistreatment were exposed. The story says Cropsey comes out at night to snatch young people and bring them back into the abandoned Willowbrook. But the horror tale was actually a horrifying reality. Cropsey was in actuality Andre Rand, a suspected killer who was convicted for the passing of 2 young individuals in the 1970s. In keeping with the tale, Rand worked as a janitor at Willowbrook in the mid-1960s. Before his capture, Rand was homeless and living in a makeshift campsite on the grounds of the abandoned school not far from the Seaview Hospital that was so closely tied to the Cropsey legend. Rand's story and the tale of Cropsey continues to fascinate and horrify kids and even adults to this day. In fact, 2 filmmakers, Joshua Zeman and Barbara Brancaccio, grew up on Staten Island and listened to the terrifying Cropsey stories when they were children. As adults, their curiosity led them to dig deeper into the urban legend of Cropsey and the real cases of the island's missing people. They even made a documentary, Cropsey, that explores the bizarre case of the boogeyman who seemed to come to life.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the evoker. I'm gonna kick off the list with my personal favorite, even if it doesn't really fit the theme that I'm going for here. It's definitely a ritual and it definitely summons demons, but it's also for a different purpose than most, as one might say awakening a persona isn't the same thing as using a ritual to bring a demon into this world. Potato, potato. Anyone familiar with Atlas games should be familiar with all the different ways of summoning demons. You can use an app, head to the TV, or fire up any number of electrical gadgets to access the demons that'll help you fight. However, one stands out above the rest. Persona 3 is well known for its striking visual style, kick-ass soundtrack, and of course, the method by which you summon demons. If you want to summon your persona, you've got to find a gun-shaped evoker, put it to your head, and pull the trigger. That's right, we're summoning demons by shooting ourselves in the head. By the way, I don't recommend using this method in real life. But in the world of Persona 3, doing so will allow you to accept your own mortality, induce terror, and summon your persona. I'd say in terms of rituals to summon demons, this is an extremely simple yet hardcore way to go about it. No summoning signs, no special materials, just a gun, your head, and your emotions. Boom. If only summoning demons was always that simple. Many folks are only able to summon one particular persona, but the protagonist in Persona 3 can use all sorts of demons to their advantage. So in this case, using an evoker can have all sorts of different demonic results. Not bad. Coming in at number 4, we've got finding a meat suit for Samhain. Plenty of demons get summoned through the many seasons of Supernatural. Some need folks to draw symbols, light candles, and recite incantations. Others require that a bowl of assorted ingredients and blood be lit on fire. Then there's the ritual to summon Samhain. This one gets really specific. First, it should be known that this demon can only be summoned once every 600 years, so be sure you've got the right calendar before starting. Most times you bring him about, you'll need a few super strong magic users. Also, it's important that whoever's going forward with this summoning ritual hides themselves from angels. Samhain is powerful enough that the celestial beings of light need to be watching at all times. Then you've got to sacrifice 3 people over the course of 3 days. Of course, the final blood sacrifice has to happen on Halloween. When else would you complete a crazy summoning ritual? Thanksgiving? Grow up. During this time, some more classic ritual stuff needs to happen. Blood is to be collected in a chalice. An old Celtic incantation is chanted. There are black candles, goat skulls, pentagrams, and special minerals. And this isn't some little piddly summon, it's a crazy one. If you get all the steps right, then the earth will crack and Samhain can arrive, taking full possession of his meat suit. Isn't that a fun phrase, a meat suit? And right back to the Halloween requirement, Samhain is the origin of Halloween. We wouldn't be celebrating the holiday without him. Of course, bringing him to life means that we'll be dealing with a few more ghosts, ghouls, and zombies than usual, but I suppose that is to be expected around Halloween. Coming in at number 3, we've got entering a basement. This just seems to happen in a lot of horror movies, huh? Some folks head on down into a creepy cellar through a hidden door, and there's an artifact waiting there for them. It might be a book, or it could be an enchanted orb. Touch it, read it, or break it, the results are all the same. Demons. Or ghosts, ghouls, and goblins, but that's kind of beside the point. It happened in The Evil Dead when the Naturam de Monto is found and a recording of incantations is played. It happened in Wishmaster when the fire opal is polished. And it happened and has happened every year for ages in the Cabin in the Woods thanks to that lovely cellar full of cursed antiquities. The best thing about these demon summoning rituals is that they're so simple, any idiot can do them. In fact, that's probably the expectation in the first place. Why bother with the planning and the learning to draw sigils and the spilling of blood when you can just crack open a book and watch the sparks fly? Plus, with this knowledge, entering any spooky basement immediately becomes step 1 in your demon summoning ritual. There's always the chance you're going to stumble across some artifact that will irrevocably alter the course of your destiny. Isn't that an exciting thought? What kind of demon would you summon from the basement? I like the idea of winding up a cursed music box and dealing with the consequences. Coming in at number 2, you can torture a family. Unlike entering a basement, torturing a family to summon a demon takes a little more finesse. You've got to know and understand the demon you're going for and ensure that the victims really don't know what's going on until the last possible moment. Take the cult in Hereditary. They had this all planned out from the start. Like, it literally took them years to put this summoning ritual together. In the end, we get a lovely saxophone wail by the one and only Colin Stetson, and Paimon finds his way into a proper male host. But how did they make it happen? We follow the Graham family for most of the flick, meaning that we're not exactly privy to the details of the ritual. Thankfully, Madeline Aguilar interviewed some witches for The Cut to find out a little more. Turns out that Paimon is listed in a Solomonic grimoire, which sort of outlines what he does and how to summon him. A summoner would need to draw a magical circle around themselves and a triangle just outside of it. They've got to be wearing the correct seal and be ready to offer the demon all sorts of stuff upon arrival. Plus, there might even be some additional demon managing involved. If you remove Paimon, who was once considered a king of hell, who was going to cover for him? It's just like real life work, but more supernatural. As is the case in most situations, the movie summoning was a little different from real life summoning, but still, going behind a family's back to switch the souls of their 2 children by decapitating one and possessing the other is a pretty crazy ritual. Then there's the whole nude old people lurking in an empty house bit. That's a little less fun in my opinion, but maybe I'll understand when I get older. Finally, at number 1, we've got revenge. I haven't done any extensive canvassing to find out if this is true or not, but I feel as though revenge is a primary driving force behind plenty of demonic summons. Don't quote me on that, but consider the implications. People want a lot of things: a large automobile, a beautiful house, a beautiful wife, but not everyone's willing to put it all on the line to acquire those things. However, once someone is possessed by a need for revenge, there isn't much that will prevent them from getting it. So if they have to summon a demon and give up their future, so be it. Revenge will be served. A prime example of a revenge-fueled ritual has to be that in the movie Pumpkinhead. Poor old Ed Harley loses his son to some rowdy dirt bikers and swears he'll get them for this. There are no rituals for bringing his son back, but there are rituals for getting revenge. He learns this from the old witch Haggis, who tells him that vengeance comes at a terrible price. Ed is fine with this and uses his son's blood mixed with his own to turn a corpse into the demon known as Pumpkinhead. Thus begins a horrifying rampage fueled by blood, one that can only be stopped by completing the ritual. And the only way to do that is for the man who summoned the demon to die. Ed Harley, who summoned a demon for revenge, realizes that it wasn't the right call. He ends up taking the place of Pumpkinhead in the grave. But revenge will bring this creature back again. There's a sequel after all. Well, I hope I didn't give you folks too many bright ideas. Summoning demons is serious business. But hey, you're on the watch list now. There's no going back. So what'd you think of the list? What kind of summoning ritual do you prefer? The simple ones or the extremely complicated? I think each has its own pros and cons.
Coming in at number 5, Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski's masterpiece, Rosemary's Baby, set the standard for many cultist horror movies, particularly in the way it reveals the cult, using a steady and slow build and paranoia, confusing us as to what exactly is even happening. This 1968 horror stars Mia Farrow and chronicles the story of a pregnant woman who suspects that an evil cult wants to take her baby for use in their rituals. However, it is quickly revealed that her husband has made a deal with the devil for success in his acting career, and the price is offering up his wife as a surrogate mother for something truly evil: Satan's son. That's right, the cult uses Rosemary as a sacrificial lamb for Satan's grand return through his own offspring, and it is truly terrifying. The general sense of unease throughout the movie is why Rosemary's Baby is an absolute classic, and perhaps one of the scarier movies in the horror genre. The horrors depicted on and off the screen aided in the rumour that the film was actually cursed by the cult and summoned demons, with many incidents occurring off-screen to the cast and crew, including the slaying of Roman Polanski's wife, Sharon Tate, at the hands of the Manson family. Coming in at number 4, VHS 2, Safe Haven. Safe Haven is one of 4 sections in the 2013 anthology found footage sequel VHS 2, with the segment being directed by Timo Tjahjanto and Gareth Hugh Evans, and being the best section in the entirety of the movie. The plot follows a news crew composed of 4 members who infiltrate an Indonesian cult in the hopes of shooting a documentary about their mysterious activities. Inside the building, they find the walls adorned in bizarre symbols, school children in classrooms, and women dressed in white garments. One of the crew, Malik, then overhears that his fiancée Lena is pregnant with another crew member's child, Adam. Things then descend into total madness. The deeper the crew go inside the building, with Lena being abducted by several women, with the cult hunting down the crew members for sacrificial reasons. Now, with only 29 minutes to play with, Evans and Tjahjanto don't hold back, not even for a second, with the segment being insanely action-packed and gore-filled from start to finish. Not to mention it builds to an insane, gore-soaked climax that will shock the audience. The cult are successful in their demon summoning, with the beast making its grand appearance towards the final moments of the movie, and it does not disappoint. Coming in at number 3, we have Children of the Corn. Children in horror movies are already creepy, but put them in a cult composed solely of children, then you have a recipe for absolutely terrifying scares. Children of the Corn, based on the book of the same name by Stephen King, is a supernatural folk horror starring Linda Hamilton and Peter Horton, and is set in a fictitious rural town of Gatlin, Nebraska. The film tells the story of a malevolent entity referred to as He Who Walks Behind the Rose, which entices the town's children to ritually murder all the town's adults and a couple driving across the country to ensure a successful corn harvest. As the couple arrive in the small, seemingly abandoned town, they discover the congregation of children led by a girl named Rachel, with them performing a cultural birthday ritual for Amos by drinking his blood from a pentagram-shaped cut on his body. Amos has turned 19, therefore is considered old enough for his passing. joining their god in the cornfield. Now, while the movie as a whole was a little disappointing, it does deliver on the horrors of cults. Not to mention there were 7 sequels, with the first being far superior. The cult movie in turn gained a cult following, with it being a hit among movie lovers. Coming in at number 2, we have Hereditary. One of 2 Ari Aster movies on our list, Hereditary was a surprise horror movie, with the reveal of its cult being kept a secret for much of the movie, making it incredibly unexpected when it begins to unfold. Released in 2018, Hereditary is Ari Aster's directorial debut, with it starring Toni Collette and Alex Wolff as a family haunted by a mysterious presence after the death of their secretive grandmother. However, what begins as a sober family drama very quickly descends into a crazy supernatural horror. What begins as a slow burn quickly catapults into a disturbing horror after an incident involving the family's son and daughter, leaving viewers covering their mouths. As a result of the incident, the mother, Annie, is forced to turn to a support group member, Jones, for support, learning ways she can contact the realm of the supernatural. However, this has devastating consequences, with her awakening something that should never have been awoken. Viewers very quickly learn that a demon-worshipping cult are the true causes of the family's misery and pain. Worse still, Ari Aster plants Easter eggs throughout the movie as a way of warning us of things to come. However, saying that, most of us may have missed these subliminal messages, but what I can say is, the wall-crawling demon was revealed long before the last 30 minutes of the movie, with the cult being there all along, watching the family and waiting for their moment. The cult in Hereditary are worshippers of Paimon, one of Lucifer's most obedient devotees, who rules 200 legions of angels, and is connected to the Tree of Death, hence why the treehouse in Hereditary is so important. The summoning of Paimon is gradual throughout the movie, but when he finally arrives and seeks solace in the body of one of the characters, well, it's enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Midsommar. There are a few things more terrifying than a cult in horror movies. A group of people devoted to a dark high power who will do absolutely anything to appease the deity. No movie displays this as effectively as Ari Aster's Midsommar. Released in 2019, Midsommar is a folk horror film starring my queen, Florence Pugh, and follows a group of friends who travel to Sweden for a festival that occurs once every 90 years, only to find themselves in the clutches of a pagan cult. Now, unlike Ari Aster's Hereditary, Midsommar lays out its intentions from the very start of the movie. The movie kicks off with Dani discovering the death of both her sister and parents, with the incident putting a strain on Dani's relationship with her already distant boyfriend Christian. Not long after, she learns that Christian has planned a trip to Sweden with his friends to attend a midsummer celebration at an ancestral commune, so the group packs up and heads out. Things very quickly descend into madness, with the group arriving and being met by a large group of white cult members in a very peculiar white outfit, with Dani realizing that something isn't quite right here. However, her concerns are proven correct when 2 commune elders die by senicide via leaping from a cliff top. When the male elder survives the fall, the cult mimics his wails of agony and crushes his skull with a mallet. Yeah, things aren't fun in Sweden right now. Now, without ruining much more for those who haven't watched it yet, the cult does what is necessary to summon the dark higher power that they worship, with the American tourist being used as a sacrifice for the demon. Now, more interesting still, while this movie isn't entirely based on a real cult, director Ari Aster does describe it as a stew of sorts. I quote, "We're drawing from actual Swedish traditions. We're drawing from Swedish folklore. We're drawing from Norse mythology." All in all, Midsommar successfully draws on the disturbing conventions of cultist horror to generate a sense of dread and unease, making it my favourite folk horror movie and cult horror movie of all time.
Coming in at number 5, we've got The Three Kings. Not 1, not 2, but 3 kings. That seems like a lot for one game, but you'll see why it's the case in a second. This game is meant to give the player access to a realm known as the Shadow Side. To do so, you have to summon 2 other spirits into your place of residence. Hopefully they're benevolent, but it has been known to bring demons or demon-like apparitions into homes. Each presence, including the summoner, will then have to figure out who is their queen and who is their fool. It is dangerous though. Like, the person who originally posted the game online tells readers not to actually try it. Educational purposes only, you know? But if you do end up playing Three Kings, it's best to go in prepared. First things first, only play when you're in a sober and positive mindset. Any distractions or chemical imbalances will lead you to having a really bad time. There are some other things you want to do to prepare, but I'll explain those after we go over the rules of the game. Play, you need to set up 3 chairs, 2 with mirrors on them and 1 in the middle as your throne. Once that's done, head to bed with an alarm set for 3:30 a.m. When you wake up, you have 3 minutes to get to your throne and start the game. Bring a lit candle with you, one with a burn time of at least an hour, and take a seat. At that point, you want to look into the darkness. Not at the mirrors, not at the candle, just into the void. Stay in this exact position, making sure your candle doesn't go out until 4:34 a.m. That's just over an hour of intense concentration. Can you handle it? During that time, the other apparitions are supposed to be watching you in their peripheral vision through the mirrors, so good luck figuring out who is who. Now, as I mentioned before, it is advised that you go in well prepared if you do decide to play Three Kings. Putting a fan behind you is supposed to blow out a candle if your body unexpectedly moves for any reason. Additionally, you can bring an object of power with you for support, like a favorite childhood toy or maybe a piece of jewelry you got as a gift. And if you want to be really safe, have a loved one on standby to talk with you or wake you up if you nod off. If you go in unprepared, you're going to have a really tough time. So make sure you're good to go and ready to deal with any consequences. Like I said before, the author advises you not to play. Coming in at number 4, we've got Bloody Mary. Who among us hasn't had a horrifying Bloody Mary experience as a child? I remember mine like it was yesterday. My friend had brown carpet in his basement, that sticks out to me for some reason, and there was a bathroom door that only locked from one side. 4 of us went in with a candle we had stolen from the cabinet, and we were all very jumpy. I think I was the first one out, to be honest, and I don't think I saw any faces other than our own. My friends, on the other hand, were adamant that they saw her. Bloody Mary. Nothing bad happened after though, so I guess we can be considered lucky. This is a classic demon summoning game and has been practiced for quite a long time. There are different variations depending on where you are, what time period you're looking at, and even based on who you ask. Generally, the idea is that a person looks into a darkened mirror and repeats someone's name a number of times in the hopes they'll catch a glimpse of their face. The face could belong to a long dead woman, a witch, or even a future lover, but the consequences are rumored to be dire. If you see a human face, you might be looking at the visage of someone you'll marry. However, seeing a skull could mean that you're going to die before finding true love. Tragic. Then there's the idea that you can summon a phantom playing this game. Many people claim that they've seen bloodied faces, skulls, or even desiccated corpses in the mirror. These apparitions are said to do many things, from screaming at participants, to scratching their eyes out, to strangling them, or even draining all their blood from their bodies. Like Three Kings, this game relies on the use of a mirror in a dark room with limited candlelight. I'm not saying these apparitions are just people's eyes playing tricks on them, but they might be people's eyes playing tricks on them. So if you go into the game thinking you're going to see something spooky in the dark, you might just see something spooky in the dark, you know? But I'll let you all decide for yourselves whether or not it's worth it to try this. Maybe start with just looking at your own face in a mirror in the dark for a bit, and then see if you want to start some ritual chanting. Coming in at number 3, we've got the Midnight Game. More so than the first 2 games we've discussed today, this one is all about summoning a dangerous entity into your home. Get ready, because the Midnight Game is freaky. Apparently, it was once a pagan ritual used to punish people who broke the law. Consider that before playing. Would you willingly put yourself in a dangerous punishment situation for no reason? Supposedly, it was just meant to scare folks, but there were some cases in which people were really hurt. Some say there is a chance of death, too. To play the Midnight Game, you've got to stay up until, you guessed it, midnight. Once the clock strikes 12, write your entire name on a piece of paper and mark it with a drop of your blood. Shut off all the lights, head to the front door, and put the piece of paper in front of it. After that, you're going to light a candle and place it atop the paper. Take a deep breath and knock 22 times on the door. Why 22? Who knows? Just follow the ritual. After the 22nd knock, blow out the candle and open your door. That's how you invite the Midnight Man into your home. So now you've done it, there's no going back. Aren't you glad there's so many steps to get to that point? Once the Midnight Man is in, you're going to want to relight your candle, which means the game is afoot. Your job now is to walk around the house, keeping the candle burning until 3:33 a.m. To do this, you've got to avoid the Midnight Man at all costs. Your candle will go out every once in a while, even if you think you're doing a good job of protecting the flame. If this happens, that means the Midnight Man is nearby. Relight your candle within 10 seconds or you're pooched. If you can relight it during that time frame, the game will continue, but if you fail, you've got to surround yourself with a circle of salt and wait out the rest of the game. If you can't get to the salt in time, the Midnight Man will make you hallucinate your greatest fear until 3:33. So if you want to win, keep moving, keep that candle lit, and make it to that time. Then you can just play Three Kings right after. Just have it set up in the basement. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Closet Game. Here's another one where you just straight up summon a demon. If you like your closets unhaunted and unpossessed though, maybe don't do it. To play, you're supposed to shut yourself in a closet that's totally dark, hold up an unlit match and say, "Show me the light or leave me in darkness." Wait a few moments, and if there are demons present, you will hear whispering behind you. You might even feel an unearthly presence. If you can hear the whispers and feel the presence, it's time to light your match. You gotta do it quick, because if you don't light it fast enough, the demon will grab you by the ankles and drag you into the darkness. And don't look behind you either. If done correctly, the whispers will disappear. At this point, it's safe to exit, but make sure you're still holding onto the match when you do so. But from then on, the closet that you were in will be haunted by that demon pretty much permanently, so have fun. And finally, at number 1, we've got one-man hide and seek. For our final game of the day, I present you with a truly terrifying experience. You essentially give a doll life and then try to find it after it hides somewhere in your house. And you'd better find it too, because nobody needs a possessed doll on the loose. By stuffing a doll with rice, one of your fingernails, and then tying it up with a piece of thread, you can create an item that can be used in this game. You're gonna then place the doll in a bathtub, give it a name, and then turn off the lights. From there, you're gonna wanna take a big mouthful of salt water, turn on your TV, and then go and hide. If you can successfully hide from the doll for a minute, it is your turn. The doll will not be in the tub anymore when you return to it, and it's up to you to find it. If you're a very good seeker, when you find your doll, you're gonna spill that mouth salt water on it, let the doll dry, and then burn it. Get rid of the ashes, and then ask yourself, why the hell did you play in the first place? So you've got the rules, the materials lists, and a bunch of really good reasons to never ever play these games. So, will you play them? What do you think? Are these games legit, or do players just scare the crap out of themselves by playing?
Number 5, the Ouija board. Starting this list off because, well, this one's pretty obvious, and there's some even weirder ones ahead, so buckle up. The Ouija board is a board game most popularized by teens in the 1970s, when fads were at a heightened time. The Ouija board has earned its reputation over the years, although it was created almost 100 years before that. Go on. The year is 1891, and as the first ads started appearing in papers, Ouija the wonderful talking board. Extra, extra, read all about it. The title from a Pittsburgh toy and novelty shop. The first paper described a magical game that answered questions about the past, present, and future with marvelous accuracy. An advertisement in a New York newspaper titled it interesting and mysterious as proven at patent office before it was allowed. Price? $1.50. Okay, so chilling and affordable. A flat board with the letters of the alphabet configured into 2 semicircles, above the numbers 0 through 9, the words yes and no in the upper corners, goodbye at the bottom. No batteries included nor needed. A planchette, like a little teardrop shaped tool used to maneuver about the board. Sounds simple enough. The idea was that 2 or more people would sit around the board and place their fingertips on the planchette and ask a question out loud. After a moment or two, the planchette seemed to start moving to the corresponding letters, spelling out an eerie message from who knows where. The origins are messy, and it's hard to pinpoint who or what inspired early attempts at this game and its humble beginnings. It kinda just appeared on the shelves. Spooky. After the 1850s, the Fox sisters of New York had popularized spiritualism, and the US started flooding with the interest in spirituality, towing the line of religion-related thrill-seeking. The Kennard Novelty Company exclusively made and marketed these talking boards. One thing, however, is that they didn't have a name for this new game. Apparently, the lore goes that one of the men who also owned and founded Kennard Toys' sister was a medium, and when asked the board what it would like to be called, to which it responded, Ouija. When asked what the name meant, it responded with, good luck. Terrifying! Hey, at least good sportsmanship. Good lucks and good games? Kind of nice touch before it spells out your fate, no? One thing I know for sure is that I'm never playing this game. Number 4, hide and seek alone. Hide and seek alone has gotten some pretty dramatic online traffic throughout the past 20-ish years. Results from people who try it, write about it, and avoid it are all pretty interesting to say the least. Though it's a bit of an elaborate ritual, the game, you summon a ghost into a doll or stuffed animal at around 3 a.m. and then invite the possessed doll for a friendly game of hide and seek. First off, who's doing this? Second off, it's 3 a.m. I'm old. I'm sleeping by this point. Third, I don't do dolls, man. Creepy. Surfacing in the 2000s on the deepest spots of the web, this frightening and spiritually challenging game has made waves and enforced that serious problems could arise if played wrong. How do you mess up hide and seek? Found you. In some cases, the rituals call for very specific details. Other times, a very loose game setup. Some dolls were even stuffed with rice instead of cotton, and apparently toenails from the player for a DNA connection were added to the object. It's at times like these that these legends start sounding very fake. Or do they? Sometimes needing red sewing string to stitch and repair the now ready teammate, the ritual has been started. The game is played at 3 AM, and some say 3:33 is the ideal time to play, in which the player washes the doll and explains to it the rules of the game and the participants playing. I will hide, and you will come find me. It's always when you're hiding that you all of a sudden have to pee. So bad. Always. And what happens when the doll finds you? Apparently the deep web has story after story about the countless effects on this game and doesn't recommend it, due to all the stresses to come after. Apparently the process of ridding the spirit of your home at the end of the game has been the most challenging part. Who'd have thought? Would help if there was an instruction manual, of course. Of course I won't be playing this game at any time soon, I'll be sleeping at that hour. Much safer. Number 3, CE5. Demonic forces come in many shapes and sizes. I chose this topic next on the list because I feel that this is the way we're headed, and it's absolutely terrifying for our world, and theirs. Dr. David M. Greer is an American ufologist and founder of the Center for Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence and director of the Disclosure Project. CSETI started in 1990 to create a civil and research-based initiative to contact ET civilizations. The group defined CE5, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, as human-initiated contact and communication with ET life. CSETI claims to have over 3,000 confirmed reports of UFO sightings by pilots alone, and CSETI has designed a protocol for human-initiated contact to UFOs using a form of consciousness. Oh yeah, and high-grade military lasers. Namaste, dude. Hey, that's pretty sick. The goal of which to publicly disclose the government's alleged knowledge of UFOs. I'm all for it. Extraterrestrial intelligence, and of course, advanced energy and propulsion systems. The summoning part comes in the form of Greer's overnight trips to see these ETs in person. This week-long intensive workshop is limited to about 25 guests and provides an intensive training program with Dr. Greer, which each night will go out and make contact using the very effective CE5 contact protocols. Located in Costa Mesa, California, researchers can expect to be alongside him for a lesson in meditation and consciousness. Greer has an audiobook out on how to summon ET craft yourself, and has numerous documentaries surrounding the topic. What do you think? Is this guy a real deal? I think so. Especially with all this UAP NASA stuff that's going on. Who knows? Number 2, Furbies. If you grew up in the 90s like me, then you must remember Furbies. They were everywhere. And then all of a sudden, nowhere. A Furby is an American electronic robot toy that was originally released in 1998 by Tiger Electronics. It resembles an owl or gremlin-like creature and went through a period of being a small craze to have become an overnight sensation in the 90s. Following its holiday season launch, with continual sales up until the year 2000, over 40 million Furbies were sold during the 3 years of its original production, with 1.8 million sold in 1998 and 14 million in 1999. Its speaking capabilities were translated into 24 languages, and this is where it starts getting messed up. And I know, because I had one. Furbies were the first successful attempt to produce and sell out domesticated enhanced AI systems. A newly purchased Furby starts out speaking entirely Furbish, the unique language that all Furbies use. Cute. But it's programmed to start using English words as soon as it learns them, in place of Furbish over time, as it just sits there, listening to you. Or sometimes even in the middle of the night, demonically talking to you. Remember that? The voices? Feed me, feed me. This process is intended to resemble the process of gibberish and learning English slowly. So sophisticated for its time. The updated Furby with voice recognition and more complex facial movements was sold by Hasbro between 2005 and 2007. Another updated Furby with even LCD eyes and a mobile app was released for the holiday season in 2012. There were a couple of red flags that had us convinced they were possessed right from the beginning. First off, they don't speak with batteries. Even if the entirety of the wiring is ripped out of them, they wake you up in the middle of the night, usually saying some messed up from the other room, and would occasionally start speaking in tongues. I know, because I heard it. I'm pretty sure that's all the red flags and requirements of a haunted toy, people. And number 1, haunted video game. The Haunted Majora's Mask cartridge story, commonly referred to as Ben Drowned,
is a creepypasta story and deep web find. This one personally gives me chills just thinking about it because I've personally watched a 5-hour speed run of this craziness. Please do some homework, you must, on this one. Not only because Majora's Mask is a beautiful game, but the crazy horror urban legend that was born is very scary. The story retells paranormal events that occurred to a sophomore gamer on a college campus upon receiving a secondhand Nintendo 64 cartridge from a friend claiming that he had received the game from an old man throwing out free games. Excited, the gamer tore home and tore into this game. But then, he begins to notice misplaced and missing graphics, added scenes, and even strange connections to a boy named Ben, who was said to have died 8 years before, from within the game. Huh? Majora's Mask is already scary enough. The story attracted many believers from all across the Zelda fandom community, including myself, and still does time to time, although sources have confirmed that this is just a story made up from developers and run to consumers. You got me, dude. I sat through like 6 hours of Link snapping his back, terrified.
Number 5. What's outside? Our first story comes to us from a blog called Are You Bloody Mary, chronicling the stories and experiences of other wayfarers who've tried to contact her. Our blogger shared her story when she was younger. Her friend had come over for a sleepover, Then they went through the usual sleepover checklist, horror movies, a little bit of gossiping about the boys, and an occult ritual. The two friends went upstairs to the bathroom, arranged candles, although they were fake ones. Still good enough for the ritual, I'm sure. Our narrator was the brave one and spun in circles over and over, giggling, and said the magic words. She said she wasn't feeling anything but dizzy and asked her friend if it had worked and anything had happened. Her friend said no. Disappointed, the girls were about to leave the bathroom when in the reflection of the mirror, they both saw the window that faced the backyard. As they went towards it, they noticed there was a figure standing in the backyard. Staring at them from down below, outside, was a girl with ratty black hair looking at the window. Somehow, she managed to rise to where the window was. The girl had her hands to her face and her mouth wide open as if she was going to let out a scream, but nothing came. The girls ran outside to try and see what was happening, but when they did, the figure that was floating outside had vanished. The story writer said she didn't sleep that night or much the week after that, and although it had happened years ago, she still thinks all the time what it was they saw that day and just what could have happened. And if you're liking hearing scary stories about creatures from beyond and all sorts of things, why don't you click through on the channel, because we've got loads of stuff for you and more stuff coming every day, so toss a subscribe our way if you're feeling generous. Number 4. Shadow Person. Our next story comes to us from the subreddit r/no-sleep, which is more than appropriate for what we're talking about today. Now this next user shares her story, saying that when she was younger, she was scared of everything. Used to sleep with all the lights on or fall asleep with the TV on to comfort her into getting to sleep. In school, the storyteller joined the summer recreation program as a way to meet and make friends. She met a girl named Rebecca, who to this day is still her best friend. Isn't that sweet? Her new friend Rebecca had told her about the legend of Bloody Mary, and to our cowardly hero it stuck with her. Said she would go home and think of Bloody Mary, think of what she would do if she was ever confronted by the demon. Eventually, non-stop worrying and anxiety started to get to her, and she decided to test her courage. Went into the bathroom, terrified, alone in the dark. Thought that if she just did it quickly, said Bloody Mary into the mirror, and got out, it would cure the fear. So she went downstairs to get a large candle and a lighter, and set the candle next to the sink, and said the magic words. She waited a few minutes, scared, shaking, but nothing happened, so she went back to her bedroom, thinking she could finally get some rest. She crawled into bed, but noted that her room was ice cold, even though it was 90 degrees outside. In her doorway was a shadowy figure. She said looking at her made her insides hurt, and she wanted to scream, but no words could come out. So she closed her eyes as tight as she could, and kept them shut the whole night. Come morning, she opened her eyes, still afraid, and there was no shadow figure standing in the doorway. So she went to the bathroom to get ready, and noticed a cut next to her eyebrow, scratches all over her stomach, and cuts on her arms. She said she did conquer her fears, but she'll never play Bloody Mary again. Number 3. Night Terrors. Our next story was shared to us by another redditor on a similar subreddit, this one going by the handle RuneCat. RuneCat talks about when they were in school, Bloody Mary was a popular game for kids to play to try and scare each other. Classic kid stuff. A way to prove who was brave and who wasn't. RuneCat's own friend group was a little too cowardly for it, running out of the bathroom without saying it enough time, leaving the lights on, baby stuff. So it became a bit of a competition, and RuneCat believed that they had something to prove as the bravest
bravest of everyone in the class. So Runcat went home that night and near midnight walked into the family bathroom, turned all the lights off, and stared into a mirror while their heart was racing. They said Bloody Mary 3 times and then stood there and waited for a minute, counted out 60 seconds exactly, and then out the door and went back to bed, proud of themselves. It wasn't until they tried to drift off to sleep that things started to get weird. They said as they were sleeping they felt something on their feet, but that they didn't have any pets in the house. So Runcat opened their eyes to see what it was. They saw something that looked like a zombie leering over the foot of the bed. A dark being with black, rotten holes over the decaying skin that was falling off the bones, and a mouth that hung open in a way that looked like it didn't know how to close it. It was here that Runcat noticed it wasn't just one creature, but as they looked into the darkness, it was a web of them, ever expanding in the places the light couldn't touch. In the corners, in the hallways outside, everywhere. Runcat started sobbing, screaming as loud as they could to try and wake up their parents. After all, honestly, if there was any zombie trouble in my house, I would call my mom too, first thing. And so their mom woke up and she was laughing, dismissing it as just a nightmare or something that the storyteller was imagining. But could it have been something more? A vision? Something seeping through to the other world? Number 2, an invisible protector. This was posted by a Redditor user named Timat99. The story was called "We Attempted to Summon Bloody Mary and It Worked Too Well." The story is about Timat's 2 friends when they were all younger. Timat and his 2 friends were at his friend's house and they wanted to try the ritual for themselves. They got a candle, lit it in the bathroom, and Timat's friend said Bloody Mary into the mirror, only he did it 5 times, which is 2 times too many, which could have ended up being their downfall. Bloody Mary gets pretty annoyed when you don't follow the rules. His friend started gasping for air, grabbing at his neck as if he was choking. They switched the lights on thinking it was just a prank, but noticed that their friend had fallen to the floor and was choking. Timat said he knew here what they'd done was a mistake. His other friend was trying to help the one choking while Timat screamed out, "Stop, Bloody Mary," commandingly, and it seemed to work, as his choking friend was finally able to breathe. And Timat claims he saw the apparition of a shadowy girl in a bloody dress in the room with them in the mirror. Now where things get interesting, if that wasn't enough to pique you, is Timat claims that since this event, his life has been changed, as if he has a protector. The most outright encounter being, while walking to college one day, he was about to cross the road when a car came racing by at a breakneck speed. He felt something tug on the back of his shirt and looked back to see who was his savior, but no one was around. He whispered out, "Mary," and heard a giggle. And number 1, Lonely Mary. Alright, and at our number 1 spot is a variation of the bloody legend that I guarantee you haven't heard yet. Our story consists of 2 friends, one named Jack, and one who preferred to be anonymous, and maybe you'll understand why in a minute. The 2 friends were hanging out on a regular Tuesday when they decided for a bit of nostalgic fun they'd play an old school game and summon Bloody Mary following a guide they followed online. He posted the guide and I'll share it with you because it's pretty interesting. Step 1, have a mate assist you. Gather your supplies, your candles, a flashlight, and red dye. Lock the door of the bathroom. Step 2, light the candles and with the thick red dye pour it over your hands. Make 4 dots on the corner of the mirror. Step 3, wipe the dye off of your hands and now put a towel over your eyes. Step 4, say "I wish to speak with the fallen queen, queen of fallen blood, queen of hatred," and take the cloth off your head. And finally, step 5, don't yell or panic. Keep calm. From here, he claims he saw a figure in the mirror with hollowed eyes and sunken cheeks. He tried to remember the rules and stayed calm and said, "Hey, how's it going?" Which is what I would say too if I summoned a demon, to be totally honest. She said nothing back and then said she was cold. So cold. Thinking like a gentleman, our hero took his jacket off to offer it to Bloody Mary. What an absolute sweetheart. He said he saw the figure begin unbuttoning her dress before he started to blush. He looked closer at her and Lord knows what was running through his head. Kissed the mirror, burning himself on the candle in the process. He swatted out the candle and looked at the now angry looking entity and said, "I need to depart, your highness," followed by a shrill shriek that sounded like it was from another world. That night, while sleeping, he woke up in the middle of the night and felt a weight on his arm. It was sore and the skin was all red and blotchy, far more than a small burn from a candle would have made. He ends his story saying he thinks Bloody Mary isn't just cold, but lonely.